Welcome to the Retro Rollback as we continue our series of Britain in the 1980s. Nostalgia and memories guaranteed as we look back on the news, headlines and more from one of the most pivotal and divisive years of the decade. It's 1984. The year had an unassuming start with the first major headlines coming in February, and it was good news in the northeast when Nissan signed an agreement and announced their plans to build a car manufacturing plant in Washington on the outskirts of Sunderland. The plant opened in 1986, creating 470 jobs and seeing foreign cars manufactured in the UK for the first time. Staying with cars, Austin Rover announced in February that the long-running Triumph brand would disappear from the motoring landscape, with the last cars to be manufactured in the summer after 63 years. 1984 saw the withdrawal of the halfpenny coin. Chancellor Nigel Lawson made the announcement and demonetised and withdrew the coin officially in December. The halfpenny was introduced in 1971 during decimalisation and had only been in circulation for 13 years. They were tiny and used to get stuck in your pocket and always ended up in the washing machine. All eyes were on Yugoslavia in February as Sarajevo played host to the 1984 Winter Olympics. Great Britain's big hopes came in the ice dancing competition as Jane Torvill and Christopher Dean were tipped to better their 5th place finish at the 1980 Games. It's fair to say they exceeded all expectations. If you want to see my video on the Torvill and Dean story, you'll find the link in the description below. That brings us on to March, and the month where the year and arguably Britain changed forever. The 12th of March saw the beginning of the National Miners' Strike, a bitter dispute led by the National Union of Mine Workers against Margaret Thatcher's Conservative government, who as part of the reform of nationalised industry looked to radically change the industrial landscape, resulting in mass job losses and pit closures. Led by NUM President Arthur Scargill, the dispute saw mass disruption across the UK, violence, division of communities and poverty in mining communities. The dispute lasted for a year, with miners returning to work in March 1985. We'll return to particular flashpoints of the strike as the year progresses. But in lighter news, Andrew Lloyd Webber's newest musical, Starlight Express, opened for the first time on the 27th of March. London's Apollo Victoria Theatre was specially transformed for the production, with skating tracks installed around the auditorium, with the entire show being performed on roller skates. Chatham Dockyard in Medway closed after being used as a shipbuilding yard for over 400 years since the reign of Henry VIII. The huge site on the Thames has since found a new purpose, being used in countless films and TV shows, including the hit BBC show Call the Midwife, which is filmed there. Into April, and we saw the escalation of the miners' strike. More than 100 pickets were arrested in violent clashes at the colliery in Creswell in Derbyshire and Babington Colliery in Nottinghamshire. It was estimated in April that only 46 out of the 176 British coal mines were still working as the strike continued. Meanwhile, Arthur Scargill, the leader of the National Union of Mine Workers, ruled out a national ballot of miners on whether to continue their strike, which at that point had lasted for 5 weeks. The Telecommunications Act 1984 came into force, confirming the privatisation of British Telecom. Later in the year, over 50% of shares in the company were offered for sale to employees and the general public. Sunday the 15th of April was a sad day for British show business. ITV screened the live weekly variety show on a Sunday called Live from Her Majesty's, featuring a wide variety of music, comedy and other acts hosted by Jimmy Tarbuck. On the 15th, comedian Tommy Cooper was booked to perform, and as he put on his cloak, preparing to do a magic trick live on stage, he stumbled and fell back against the curtain, slumping to the ground. The audience initially laughed, thinking it was part of the act, but after a short pause, the live TV feed cut to commercials, and Tommy was soon after pronounced dead, having suffered a fatal heart attack live on stage and on live television. He was 63. I won't show the final footage of that scene for obvious reasons. More bad news on the 17th as WPC Yvonne Fletcher was shot and killed by a secluded gunman during a siege outside the Libyan embassy in London. In the event known as the 1984 Libyan embassy siege, 11 other people were also shot, but all survived. A memorial to WPC Fletcher stands today in London's St James Square. March ended with the launch of a new car. Austin Rover launched its new Montego 4-door saloon, which replaced the Austin Ambassador and the Morris Etal. To May, and at a time when deindustrialisation saw many of our towns and cities grey and bleak, Liverpool was filled with colour as the International Garden Festival came to the city. Built on derelict dockland near the Dingle area, the festival boasted 60 individual gardens, a large exhibition space, a festival hall, plus numerous indoor exhibits. In London, the city's long-awaited flood defences were officially opened by the Queen. The Thames Barrier began construction in 1974 and was completed at a cost of £535 million. May saw the conclusion of the football season, and all the silverware went to Merseyside. Elton John looked on from the stand at Wembley as his Watford side faced Everton in their first ever FA Cup final. But it was Everton who were victorious, winning their first trophy in 14 years as they beat the Hornets 2-0 to take the silverware. Graham Sharp scored the opener, and a controversial second goal from Andy Gray, where he was judged by many to have fouled Watford goalkeeper Steve Sherwood by heading the ball from his hands. But was it a goal or wasn't it? There's only one thing for it. Let's put it to VAR. Yeah, I'd say that was a foul. So in VAR terms, no goal. Elton, you were robbed. It was an even better season for Liverpool as he scooped the treble of the European Cup with a penalty shootout over AS Roma, the League Cup as they beat their neighbours Everton, and the Division 1 title. Southampton enjoyed a great season as well, finishing second. Not so good for the Midlands clubs though, Birmingham City, Notts County and Wolves all making the drop. Meanwhile in Scotland, Aberdeen were convincing Premier League champions under the stewardship of Alex Ferguson, 7 points clear of second place Celtic. It was St Johnstone and Motherwell that dropped to Division 1. 1984 was the final year of the British Home Championship that saw the home nations compete against each other for the Jubilee Trophy. After 100 years, the final winners were Northern Ireland. Back to the bad news and the loss of another showbiz legend. Eric Morecambe, one half of Morecambe and Wise, collapsed on stage at the Rosie's Theatre in Tewkesbury on the 27th of May. He died in hospital the following day of a heart attack, aged 58. Born Eric Bartholomew, he took his stage name from his birth town, where today his memory and his statue stands proud. June saw one of the most violent occurrences of the miners' strike break out in South Yorkshire. Picketing miners from all over the UK converged on the town of Orgreave, with the intention of stopping the flow of coal into the town's coking plant. What followed was a violent clash between striking miners and police, who were kitted out in full riot gear. The Battle of Orgreave, as it became known, saw 95 arrests and 123 injuries, including NUM President Arthur Scargill. There were big changes in the education system in the UK as well, as plans were finalised to abolish O-levels and CSE exams, to be replaced by GCSE or standard grades as they were known in Scotland. The first GCSE and standard grade courses began in 1986. What a year, and we're only halfway through. Let's take a break from the news again and see how far our money would go. The average weekly wage in 1984 was £159 a week. Let's go! The cost to buy a TV and video recorder in the early 80s was high and beyond many people's financial means, so it was still commonplace back then to rent. DER were one of the main TV and audio rental firms in the UK, and they were offering the most common combination in 1984 that most households wanted: a big TV for the living room with a video recorder and a small TV for the bedroom. And you could rent them all as a package for £28.97 a month. To cars, and the Renault 5 was in direct competition with the Austin Metro in 1984 as the go-to city car, and Renault were doing a deal on a brand new one. £99 deposits and total cost to buy £3,510. You'd struggle to buy a wing mirror for that today. And finally, for people like me that can't cook for toffee, frozen meals from Asda would do the job nicely. Beef, prawn or chicken curry for under £1 each. Lovely. Okay, back to the second half of the year, and in July the government announced it was to abolish dog licences. The Local Government Act 1988 was ratified, and from 1988, good boys like these no longer needed government paperwork. Any excuse to show cute dogs on the video. A blaze took hold of one of England's largest cathedrals. York Minster was engulfed in flames on the 9th of July, a fire that's thought to have started as a result of an electrical storm. The repair took 4 years and cost over £2 million. Media tycoon Robert Maxwell purchased Mirror Group newspapers in July for a price of £113 million. Maxwell was at the helm of the newspaper group until his death in 1991. July saw the Summer Olympics open in Los Angeles, and it was a decent year for Great Britain. Amongst the gold medals were Sebastian Coe in the men's 1500 metres, Daley Thompson in the decathlon, Tessa Sanderson in the javelin, and Steve Redgrave in the rowing. July ended in tragedy as a mainline Edinburgh to Glasgow passenger train hit a cow on the line at around 80 miles per hour, causing the train to derail and lift off the tracks near Polmont. The Polmont rail disaster resulted in 13 deaths and 61 injuries. August saw controversy as barefoot South African runner Zola Budd, who was granted British citizenship earlier in the year, collided with Mary Decker in the 3,000 metres final at the Olympics. Neither won any medals. It's September now and another royal baby was born. Princess Diana gave birth to a boy which they named Henry Charles Albert David, or Harry as he became better known. To October now, and a new children's TV programme made its debut and became an instant hit. Based on the Railway series books by the Reverend Wilbert Awdry and his son Christopher, Thomas the Tank Engine made his first appearance, with the stories narrated by former Beatle Ringo Starr. Since then, over 500 episodes were produced over 24 seasons. October the 12th saw the IRA bombing of the Grand Hotel in Brighton during the Conservative Party conference. Many MPs, cabinet ministers and the Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher were in residence when the device detonated just before 3 AM. The Prime Minister escaped unscathed, but 5 people died in the blast. The following day, history was made in British darts when John Lowe stepped up to the oche and threw the first ever televised 9-dart finish and bagged himself a cool £100,000. Back to television and the debut of a programme that was to become a weekly staple on ITV until 2010. The Bill was commissioned as a series after the success of the pilot in 1983 called Wooden Top. The show followed the officers in crimes of the fictional London suburb of Sun Hill. At the time of recording, The Bill was Britain's longest-running police drama series. BBC News presenter Michael Burke hit the headlines in October as he reported from Ethiopia on the famine that was claiming countless lives. The harrowing scenes resonated with many and inspired Bob Geldof to pull together the great and the good of music under the name of Band-Aids to record a Christmas charity single. And together with Midyear of Ultravox, they had written the song, rallied the troops and had the song in the can in time for the Christmas chart. Do They Know It's Christmas went on to raise millions for Ethiopia. Yes, 1984 was a big year full of highs and lows, although I think mainly lows. And don't forget to pop your memories of 1984 in the comments section below and let me know what you remember about 1984 and what you were doing back then as well. It's always great to get your memories, and it also gives me ideas for future videos as well. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you like this type of content, then click subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of our future videos. It's completely and utterly free. And if you missed any of the other videos in the series, the playlist link is also below, and there's a video on screen just now that you can check out if you want to. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again the next time.